Alright, this is my Canyon Talk on that you may have seen me riding recently in a video where I tried to ride this bike as a downhill bike and take the battery out to see what that was like. And there was loads of questions and comments about this bike in that video, so I thought I'd let you know a bit more about this bike, what I had to do, the modifications I had to make to turn this thing into a downhill bike, plus it's another excuse for me to get out and do some riding on it. So this is the Canyon Talk on CF, the carbon fibre edition, which is about 1.5 kilograms lighter than that aluminium version of the same bike. And this is limited edition, the Ken Roxon version, who's a motocross racer you may know of. And that's why you get that really special paint job. So this bike is 175mm rear travel. Obviously it's got a coil, it's got that RockShox Super Deluxe coil shock, and normally it has a 180 single crown fork up front. So that's the biggest difference. Obviously I've put a RockShox Boxer downhill triple clamp 200mm travel fork up front. And it's actually maybe not quite as simple as you think, because this bike comes with a tapered head tube, which means it's 1.5 inch lower race and then a more standard 1 1/8 up top. And actually, well, the Boxer I had, the original crown and steerer was 1 1/8 all the way through. So what you do to make that fit is basically get a sort of crown reducer cup. So where you've got the bearing race on the bottom of there, you basically get this cup that sits much wider and then the bearing race is further inside, so it sits within that race. It's actually a little bit difficult to find the right one, as you may know. Headsets are really quite complicated, and trying to find the specific headset crown reducer cup for your headset was not simple. However, what I did is I went onto Amazon, you can buy them really cheap, it was £8. And you've just got to kind of guess to try and find one that will fit, and it'll be the right sort of chamfer as well, the right angle to fit within your bearing race. And luckily, first time I tried it, it fitted. But actually the one I did try at home, I had one sitting around that didn't quite sit nicely. So there's a bit of bodging to be done. And actually as well, this fork came off a downhill bike and I'd cut the steerer tube too short on that bike to fit this one. It's quite a sizable head tube on this bike, so I had to order a new crown and steerer, which is not the cheapest to be fair, but you know, it's all part of making it work for me. So if you've already got a bike like this, it's worth checking with your warranty if you're thinking about going up to a triple clamp fork, particularly if you're increasing the travel like I have. It can void warranties on bikes. I reached out to Canyon, fortunately with their company we work with, and they said, yeah, go ahead for this video. Whether or not it officially does anything to the warranty, you would need to double check that yourself, but that's completely dependent on the brand of bike you've got. I have checked other bikes in the past and they said we will not warranty this bike with a triple clamp, so on your head be it. Like I say, this is a 200mm travel fork, but you can reduce this to a 180 or 190, which actually I think would probably suit it if I was going to do it. I think that would be quite a nice modification for this bike. The RockShox Boxer actually only weighs about 200 grams more than the Zeb that it replaced, which I think is quite surprising. I know Zeb is quite a big fork anyway. I've now got a direct mount stem on top of that crown as well, which I think looks super neat. I love the look of that thing. You know, this is a relatively big bike anyway. It's got the 900 watt-hour battery, so it's pretty heavy-ish, I'll say 25 kilograms, but it is in the right place, so it doesn't feel like a tank at all. It feels great descending. But I think, to be fair, you know, with the big travel, it's a big hitting thing, and the weight, you really need the tyres and the brakes to go with it to make sure you're gripping. So I did upgrade the brakes at the same time. I've gone for the SRAM Maven brakes with the massive calipers. Really good, like really good modulation on these brakes, to be fair. Super powerful, but they're kind of easy to work with. Big 4-pot calipers, like I said, loads of power. And then really, you sort of need the grip to go with it. So I've got these Pirelli Scorpion, the downhill race tyres, so nice and soft rubber on there. So it's definitely not the fastest rolling bike with its weight and its grip and everything, but it's super balanced. You know, obviously the Boxer is an air fork, so really easily tunable. High and low speed compression damping on there, which is still set in base settings, to be fair. This is a large bike, so I'm 5'10", sort of 178 centimeters. I find I'm right on the cusp between mediums and larges. This is a large, but I do find it really nice. There's loads of space on the bike, but what it meant is that it was kind of oversprung. So I've gone down to a 400 spring on that RockShox Super Deluxe coil shock. and it feels totally balanced. To me, it feels great. You know, when I'm riding this thing fast, it feels like, you know, it's a long wheelbase, but actually I'm kind of right in the middle of it, and I never get any kind of scary washouts or the rear wheel slide, and it feels like it is really nicely balanced. And to be honest, you know, I haven't tuned it that much. Mixed wheel size, which for a downhill bike I absolutely love. I love being able to hang off the back of it and have that space, but also have that the solid 29er up front. One of the great things about kind of having the access transmission and the dropper post as well is obviously getting rid of the cables. And as much as people love to hate on internal routed headset cabling, when you have these new SRAM brakes that come out really close to the bar, and especially with the triple clamp, it tucks in so neatly there that, you know, when I'm riding, all you see is that front hose, especially with an e-bike. You know, obviously I do have a display there, but that, you know, the little cable goes straight down into the headset as well. It's super, super neat. Other sort of interesting upgrades from the box with this bike, I've got Industry 9 e-bike wheels on there, carbon fibre rims, the Hydra hubs, super nice looking silver spokes, and the hubs, I think they look great. I've got some 5-dev cranks there, 160mm, so relatively short, which is great for climbing. Obviously, the kind of kooky thing about this being my downhill bike is it's an e-bike. So actually, I need a dropper post for getting back up the hills, which you would never find on a downhill bike. Plus, I've obviously got the massive SRAM Eagle cassette as well. So do you think that's a bit kooky if I'm calling it a downhill bike? I mean, for me, it's kind of, they're the tools I need to get back up the top of the hill to make sure I am getting the most out of this bike. One of my concerns that I wasn't sure how it was going to go when I was fitting a triple clamp was steering lock. This bike up front, this head tube and the sort of top tube is all pretty wide on this bike, so obviously that kind of restricts how much lock I can get on the fork. It turns out it's all right. I've not hit that at all. You know, maybe in some super techy tight trails I thought I would, but I haven't so far at all. And actually, comparing it to my downhill bike that I've got, I reckon I've probably got more steering lock on this bike, to be fair. So, you know, like I said, I've not run into any problems with that so far. I ride this bike just in the woods, so obviously it's quite tight in some places. So actually I run a fairly narrow bar. I've cut these aluminium Canyon on bars down to 760mm wide. I love riding flat pedals. It gives me kind of freedom to throw this thing around. And I do ride it quite hard, I think. You know, it's fairly heavy. I throw it around quite a lot, so I have to run relatively high pressures, even in these downhill tyres. They've got really strong sidewalls in these tyres, dual ply, but I run 25 PSI up front and around 28 PSI in the rear on the 27.5, obviously 29er up front. I've got a Shimano EP801 motor with this 85 Newton meters of torque, so obviously full power. And this bike can come with either 720 watt hour or 900 watt hour batteries. I've gone for some kind of more downhilly parts on this bike as well. So I've got the Ergon GD1 downhill grips. And rather than go for the bigger e-bike saddles, I've got the Ergon SM Enduro Pro titanium saddle, titanium rails. Lovely sort of petrol colour, same as the grips. Had to make a sort of slight modification up on this e-bike remote to kind of make it fit. Obviously everything's super tight in here. I like my brakes quite far along the bar, so I'm hanging right off the very end of the lever, which doesn't leave me much real estate to stick a remote. It had to be down here, until I realised if I flipped it over, it would just about fit in this gap of kind of the master cylinder of the brake. So it's really tight, but it works. But obviously now it is upside down, so if I forget, I need to hit the bottom one to get it up the modes. Obviously it's got a massive battery, so I ride it in full power the whole time. And this bike, so it has the Shimano EP801 and the kind of the Di2 cables, I would call them, but the cables connecting everything. With this bar, it's actually got internal routing, so the cable comes out of this controller and it wraps around and goes under the grip. There's like a groove in the bar, then it comes in the bar end, through the bar, pops out just here and wraps around to this display. So like I said kind of before, if you look closer, you can see where they're going in and out, but it's lovely and neat. You've got a Canyon little stubby mudguard on the rear and a really nice integrated RockShox one that comes with the boxer up front, which does a really good job, actually, both of those things. And you've got this somewhat controversial, I think, space for a water bottle that goes in here, which I think looks all right, but to be honest, I use this as a downhill bike, so actually I'm doing laps. I don't tend to carry a water bottle anyway. Now this is slightly savage, you might think, but I actually had to get a file out on my one-up stem just to file away a tiny little bit, probably about 1.5 millimeters, to get that cable to come through and under the bar. I did first to begin with sort of wrap it round, but I thought I can make it neater than that, and I'm sure that bit of material, it's a tiny bit in the middle, probably not essential, so it actually works. I think it looks much better like that as well. Oh, the grip levels are insane at the moment. I think it's a combination of bike setup and tyres and just the way everything is at the moment. It's so good. Oh man, I absolutely love riding this bike. I've spent more time on this bike than probably any downhill bike I've ever had, because I can just do so many runs, and that's the type of riding I love to do, and I can just lap back up. I think I've got about 1,800 metres out of this 900 watt battery as well in one go, so it's more than enough for me in a day. In fact, the battery probably lasts me 2 days, but yeah. Let us know what you think of my downhill bike e-bike in the comments down below. And let me know if something that you think you'd like to try. I love having a long travel e-bike. It really suits my riding, so thanks for watching.